Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, hooligans, shills, nestlés, horse peasants, vassals, thugs, protesters, demonstrators, Turks. I'm a useful idiot. Today I want to talk about Turkey again because, surprisingly, at least surprising to me, here it is 2 weeks later, and these clashes and protests in Turkey have spread across the whole country and don't look like they're going to abate anytime soon. So this is turning into a big deal with a lot of implications. So what we have now is the original protest in Turkey over Taksim Square has turned into a 2-week-long national protest. And it's now branched out into over 78 cities. And the 240,000 Turkish workers, public workers, have joined. 11 unions have all joined in this now. And 4 have been killed, and there's been 5,000 injuries. And the put down of the protesters has been unrelenting, and that's one of the things that marks this, and one of the things that I find remarkable. And not only that, but the fact that Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, actually left the country while all this was going on. That's how much audacity he has. And then when he returns, he continues to lambaste the protesters, and including a media shutdown. And all this activity has only served to galvanize the opposition, although it's not really opposition. I mean, it's not really a revolution. And the only calls for resignation have generally been for police chiefs and mayors who have perpetrated this violence against the protesters. So I find it really shocking that Erdogan is just going to forge straight ahead and raise this park and build this tribute to the Ottoman Empire that he wants to put in this very popular public park. And we also see this clash between the Islamic nature of Erdogan and his ruling party and the secular middle class of Turkey's major cities. But as we find in a lot of regions of the world, not just Turkey or the Middle East, the greater part of the country, the rural regions, where there's a lot more devout Islam, those are the biggest supporters of the Erdogan regime. And the middle class has benefited a lot in the last 10 years of economic growth. And but they don't like this mix of authoritarianism and religious restriction that Erdogan seems to be leaning towards. And they're very proud of their secular history and would like to continue to do so. And there's been a lot of moves by Erdogan that seem to point in a different direction. And that's what I want to focus on, because what we have here, Mr. Erdogan, although he has been very vocal in being a friend of Israel's, and he's been very vocal about supporting the anti-Assad movement in Syria, but and then wooing the United States and NATO, and they have one of the largest militaries operating within NATO, and they have a very Western-style country in many respects, and they are very secular. But now they have a leader, Erdogan, who, in spite of all the secular progress that's been made in the country and the economic growth and the pragmatism, he has all the markings of another Middle Eastern Islamic despot that we've seen all over the Middle East. And the reason why I say that is because, first of all, the incredible hubris and audacity for him to actually leave the country when this is going on is amazing. And the fact that he would refer to them the way he did before he left was bad enough. But then he came back, and he's going to continue full steam ahead. And the brutal crackdown on the protesters continues with rubber bullets and tear gas and batons. And the streets of Turkish cities look much like we've seen all over the Middle East. But let me get to some of the things that Erdogan has said that I find rather shocking. In one quote, he said, quote, "We were supposed to kneel before them and say, 'Please remove your pieces of rags,'" referring to protest flags. "They call me harsh, but this Tayyip Erdogan won't change." And then he goes on to say, quote, "To those who are at Taksim and elsewhere, Taksim Square and elsewhere, taking part in the demonstrations with sincere feelings, I call on you to leave these places and to end these incidents, and I send you my love. I mean, this is kind of strange stuff. This is the kind of stuff we expect from Gaddafi. I am still here. But I don't want to invest too much into some of these quotes because, of course, the translations are rough, and we don't know where these translation sources are from and what their agenda would be. But the last one is a real humdinger, the last couple. Quote, not only will we end the actions, we will be at the necks of the provocateurs and terrorists, and no one will get away with it, unquote. That's quite a threat coming from a supposedly secular leader of Turkey. And he's showing his authoritarian nature and a strange kinship with a lot of, like I say, Islamic despots that we've seen all over the Middle East. So this is kind of disturbing to see this. And needless to say, since it's been going on for 2 weeks, we can see a lot more unrest and a lot more repercussions of these events. I still don't think they're going to have a revolution per se, but if Erdogan keeps pushing the way he is and continues this brutal crackdown, continues this audacious and provocative and threatening language, it's hard to predict what will unfold in Turkey. And obviously this is unfolding at a rather interesting time with the war raging in Syria, talks of maybe Syria and Turkey having a clash, or just that whole arrangement that we have going on in the Middle East right now, where Turkey wanted to become an international broker. But and another aspect of this as well, of course, is that the Turkish economy, which had been doing quite well, as I noted, the last 10 years of amazing growth, they're really taking some hits now. In fact, Erdogan came out and said, quote, the protesters are being used by some financial institutions, the interest rate lobby, and media groups to harm Turkey's economy and scare away investments, unquote. So that sounds like some pretty nutty, paranoid kind of talk. Now, normally I would say a leader suggesting that his country is about to be raped by bankers is probably a likely scenario. But this is one of those rare cases where it doesn't really make sense. But what we have is a hostile environment for investors there now, and their market's tanking, and they're going to take some economic hits for this. So if this keeps going on, there's going to be more economic damage in Turkey, which will only unleash further demons. And this brutalization of the protesters will also galvanize the opposition, so it could very well morph into something entirely different with this mix of elements. So there we have it. We need to keep more of an eye on Turkey. This is a very important linchpin in that region for U.S. and Israeli policy and all the events that unfold there. So what happens in Turkey is pretty important. And these events that are happening now are rather shocking. And if they continue to be so, we could see something dramatic. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.